Hare Krishna. Today I will read the Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text 5, and I seek the blessings of senior Vaishnavas and Acharyas in the Parampara to say a few words on this verse. We'll start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 5, Canto 2, Chapter 4. Raja Uvacha Samichinam Vacho Brahman Sarva Gyanasya Tava Nagha Tamo Vishrate Mayam Hare Kathayata Katham. Raja Uvacha Samichinam Vacho Brahman Sarva Gyanasya Tava Nagha Tamo Vishrate Mayam Hare Kathayata Katham. Raja Uvacha Samichanam Vacho Brahman Sarva Gyanasya Tava Nagha Tamo Vishrate Mayam Hare Kathayata Katham. I'll read the translation. Raja Uvacha, the king said, Samichanam, perfectly right. Vacha, speeches. Brahman, O sacred, O learned Brahmana. Sarva Gyanasya, one who knows all. Tava, your. Anagha, without any contamination. Tamha, the darkness of ignorance. Visharate, gradually disappearing. Mahayam, unto me. Hare, of the Lord. Kathayata, as you are speaking. Katham, topics. Translation. Maharaj Parikshit said, O learned Brahmana, you know everything because you are without the material contamination. Therefore, whatever you have spoken to me appears perfectly right. Your speeches are gradually destroying the darkness of my ignorance, for you are narrating the topics of the Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace, S.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The practical experience of Maharaj Parikshit is disclosed herein, revealing that transcendental topics of the Lord act like injections when received by the sincere devotees from a person who is perfectly uncontaminated by material tinges. In other words, reception of the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam from professional men heard by Karma Kandya audience never acts miraculously as stated here. Devotional hearing of the message of the Lord is not like hearing ordinary topics. Therefore, the action will be felt by the sincere hearer by experience of the gradual disappearance of ignorance. Then Srila Prabhupada quotes one of the verses from Svetashvatra Upanishad 6.23. Yasya deve prabhaktir yasa deve tatha guru tasyathe katitha hi artha prakashante mahatma. So the translation for this is, only unto the great souls who have implicit faith in Guru and Krishna, all the imports of the Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. So only unto the great souls who have what qualification? Implicit faith in both Guru and Krishna. All the imports of the Vedic knowledge is automatically revealed. So this is very relevant to this purport. And then Srila Prabhupada talks about when a hungry man is given food to eat, he feels satiation of the hunger and the pleasure of the dining simultaneously. Thus, he does not have to ask whether he has actually been fed or not. The crucial test of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is that one should get positive enlightenment by such an act. So I will try to say a few words based on my reflections on this verse. And before that, I will start with the prayers. Om Agyanatimirandasya Agyananjanaya Shalakya Chakshur Almitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tatatki Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahakana Raghunatvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savdutam Pritana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavareshwari Vishwabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Vanchakalpaturasya Cha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanbhyo Vaishnavbhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shitkrata Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So here the verse is talking about the glories of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from a pure devotee. So there are different qualifications that Srila Prabhupada talks about. The first is that the speaker is free from any material contamination. And if that happens, and the qualification of the hearer is that they are having the faith and concentration, then the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam works like an injection to dissipate the darkness in our heart, which actually comes when, as soon as the soul enters the womb, and the Yoga Maya covers, as we know from the scriptures, the Yoga Maya covers us with covers the soul, which is Sakshana Ananda, with the darkness. So what is the injection and remedy here is that if we hear with faith and concentration, have faith in Guru and Krishna, then and are hearing from the source, the right source, which is the somebody who is free of material contamination with pure love of God, then all the darkness will be dissipated, and this will work like an injection rather than a daily medication one has to take. It will quickly work like an injection, go into the bloodstream, and eliminate all the contaminations and put the right nectar in the body. So that is how the impact is described, the qualifications. And then what are the true symptoms of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is that it is like a ramp down and a ramp up, which is the ramp down of material contamination and ramp up of the spiritual nectar. So we get detached materially and we get attached spiritually. And we can see that the consistent hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam does have an impact on us. And if the impact is slow, then it is not the issue of the source. It's not the medicine, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, is not potent. It is completely potent. It is just the capacity for the hearer to absorb and to purify. So to the extent we have the faith and concentration and the capacity, then we can, with that speed, we can clear the material contaminations and advance spiritually. So we gradually advance spiritually, and the consistency. I was reading in another topic that if we are consistent, that's the best way to gain respect in any field, any profession. So similarly, as we are consistent in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, slowly and surely our material contaminations are going to go away. We may not realize it every day, but over a long period of time with consistent hearing, we can see all the devotees, we are consistently hearing, consistently doing devotional service. We can see, or I can see myself that I see the futility and understand the futility of material things. They are temporary, going to go away, and the actual nectar of the spiritual things. So it can be likened to this hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam can be likened to the sunlight. So the sunlight is there, and we have heard this analogy many times before in these classes. So the sunlight is there. It is to the extent we keep all the windows closed, then we don't get sunlight. We remain in absolute darkness. Whereas if we open the windows, if we open one window, we get that much sunlight. If we open multiple windows, we get more sunlight, and the darkness is dissipated. If we want complete dissipation of darkness, we just leave home and go outside, and we can absorb all the sun, and then there is no question of any darkness left over. So then this example is given of a hungry man is when they eat the right nutritious food, they get two effects. The hunger is satiated, and the pleasure of dining is experienced. So the hunger is satiated is likened to the dissipation of the darkness, and pleasure of dining is likened to the tasting the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the pure love of God. So with this, we can understand and dissipate the darkness. No amount of intelligence, memorization, and the knowledge will help us taste this nectar. It is going to be just the implicit faith in Guru and Krishna, with the hearing with submissive attitude, and with a humble attitude is when we can absorb this Srimad Bhagavatam. Even when the source is right, we have to be ready to absorb it with the right attitude, with the right consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada also talks about why we should not hear from the professional speakers. Well, the reason is very simple. The professional speakers who charge money, they are going to talk about the material benefits, try to give material benefit, and leave the spiritual, the love of God aside. So, which is opposite of what Srimad Bhagavatam is trying to say, is that we actually completely, I was reading Canto 1 as well, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 2. The first two words caught my eye, and I actually revisited that, and the purport is very relevant to this verse. The first two words are completely rejecting the material things. So those two words are very strong, but they are needed because that basically clarifies what does Srimad Bhagavatam stands for, and for it to stand for talking about Krishna, talking about the love of God, helping devotees experience the love of God, it completely rejects the material things. So we have to actually, it's not an evolution, it is basically a rejection of the material things. So that's why we should not hear from professional speakers that come to various places, and they are in places like India, they're booked out several years, those professional speakers. But they are going to talk about material benefits. They are not going to talk about spiritual benefit. So what those professional speakers are going to do is leave the essence out, which is love of God, and they are going to give something which is materially contaminated, which is opposite of what Srimad Bhagavatam stands for. So as I mentioned that, I was thinking about what I'm going to say, and this verse reminded me of the second verse of the first canto, first chapter. So I'm going to just read the translation a little bit as a refresher because it's very relevant, and I will read some snippets of the purport by Srila Prabhupada, and that will just clarify and nicely complement the purport in this verse. So the translation of the text 2 is completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need for any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively, as soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. And so this verse is so relevant that Maharaj Parikshit is actually saying that this is the practical symptom that Lord Krishna, his taste for Lord Krishna, hearing the glories of Lord Krishna is increasing, and his material contaminations have gone away. His affection for his body, his material mind, his family, his kingdom, his associates, that has all the material associates, that has completely gone away. So I'll read some of the snippets from this purport. This knowledge that the energy of the Lord is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord is the answer to mental speculators' attempt to establish the energy as the absolute. When this knowledge is factually understood, one sees the conception of monism and dualism to be imperfect. Development of this transcendental consciousness grounded in the conception of simultaneously one and different leads one immediately to the stage of freedom from the threefold miseries. The threefold miseries are those miseries which arise from the mind and body, those miseries inflicted by other living beings, and those miseries arising from the natural catastrophes over which one has no control. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the devotee unto the absolute person. So this is beautiful. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the devotee. So that is the qualification that Srila Prabhupada talks about in this verse as well. That the qualification is the surrender, submissiveness, faith, and concentration for the hearer. The devotee is fully aware that he is one with the absolute and the same in the eternal position of servant to the absolute. In the material conception, one falsely thinks himself the Lord of all his service, and therefore he is always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. But as soon as one comes to know his real position as transcendental servant, he at once becomes free from all miseries. As long as the living entity is trying to master material nature, there is no possibility of his becoming servant of the Supreme. So there is a mutual exclusivity explained here. That as long as we are trying to lord our and have material attachments, there is no question of someone becoming the true servant of the Supreme. Service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service, one is immediately freed from material encumbrances. Over and above this, Srimad Bhagavatam is a personal commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Srila Vyasadeva. It was written in the maturity of his spiritual life through the mercy of Narada. Sri Vyasadeva is the authorized incarnation of Narayana, personality of Godhead. Therefore, there is no question as to his authority. So very important as far as the source, the Srimad Bhagavatam itself there is no question as to his authority, because it is the authorized incarnation of Narayana. So that is how it works as an injection. In other Puranas, there are different methods set forth by which one can worship the demigods, but in the Bhagavatam, only the Supreme Lord is mentioned. The Supreme Lord is total body, and the demigods are different parts of the body. Consequently, by worshipping the Supreme Lord, one does not need to worship the demigods. The Supreme Lord becomes fixed in the heart of devotees immediately. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended the Srimad Bhagavatam as the spotless Purana and distinguishes it from all other Puranas. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is not just spotless and different from other Puranas. It is not only beyond other Puranas, but is also different in the sense that it completely rejects the material manifestations. The proper method for receiving this transcendental message is to hear it submissively. A challenging attitude cannot help one realize this transcendental message. One particular word is used herein for proper guidance. This word is susrusu. One must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. So different words come to mind here. There one has to be anxious, one has to be submissive, one has to be humble, one has to be sincere, one has to have faith, one has to focus. That's in that mood, then it can work like an injection on us, and we can quickly transcend this material manifestations. Less fortunate persons are not at all interested in this Srimad Bhagavatam. The process is simple, but the application is difficult. And it is not one of these, as they say, simple things are often hard. So Srila Prabhupada says here, the process is simple, but the application is difficult. And why the application is difficult is because of our own shortcomings. Our own shortcomings of we are either not anxious, we are either not submissive, we are not humble, or maybe we don't focus sometimes completely. Unfortunate people find enough time to hear idle social and political conversations, but when invited to attend a meeting of devotees to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, they suddenly become reluctant. Sometimes professional readers of Bhagavatam immediately plunge into the confidential topics of the pastimes of the Lord, and which they completely misinterpreted. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning. Those who are fit to assimilate this work are mentioned in this sloka. One who becomes qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam after many pious deeds. So I'll repeat, one becomes qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam after many pious deeds. And then these pious deeds are not necessarily the fruitive work. These pious deeds are not worship of the demigods. These pious deeds are actually in our past life associating with devotees, serving devotees, hearing the holy name submissively. So this is the meaning of pious deeds here. So we are very fortunate actually that whoever has assembled and in this congregation of Nepal will hear Srimad Bhagavatam afterwards, so those who couldn't attend, that these are results of the pious deeds. This is a very important statement, that pious deeds were actually spiritual Krishna conscious deeds in our past life. Otherwise, we are not qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. An intelligent person with thoughtful discretion can be assured by great sage Vyasadeva that he can realize the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, because Srimad Bhagavatam is the incarnation of Sri Krishna in Kali Yuga, and that's what was recommended. So we can realize the purpose of life by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam directly. Without undergoing the different stages of realization set in the Vedas, one can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahansa simply by agreeing to receive this message. Very beautifully said. We just have to agree to receive the beautiful message of Srimad Bhagavatam. This should not be pushed. This message should not be pushed who is not ready to hear or who does not agree to hear. But those who agree to hear, this is free, this is abundant, and this is extremely potent. Just like sunlight, we can go free, we can free ourselves, go in the sunlight, and there is a beautiful sun shining outside. So the analogy fits very well. It's free, it's available. We just agree to go out and experience the sunshine. So I thought, it was good to just level set what the second shloka said about in this first canto, that what are the qualifications and how we can just remind ourselves of fully focus on hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam message with faith in Guru and Krishna. We agree to receive the message. We have submissiveness and humility to hear that message, and we have the listening attitude. Then we can absorb the full impact of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the other part I want to bring up is, in addition to those things, the consistency is the key. This is the medicine for us, which we have been given very fortunately, and we consistently apply over a long period of time. We do actually achieve devotion to Krishna, and we may not realize it. We know that whenever we can, like to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Whenever we can, we like to chant. Whenever we like to associate with devotees. So these things actually show us devotion. Sometimes some very advanced devotees may say, "I have no devotion," which is a reflection of their, quite an elevation, that they think they don't have devotion. But people who observe the those advanced devotees, they can see that they actually have devotion, because the day we don't chant, or the moment or the morning we don't chant, or when we don't hear Srimad Bhagavatam, whenever we can. I try to hear whenever I can, when I'm driving, or when I'm doing other things where I can multitask. I always try to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So it does dissipate the darkness slowly but surely. And so we should not underestimate the power of consistency. And gradually, every day we may not realize it, but over a long period of time, we'll reflect back and see, or I reflect back and see, I understand and agree with the futility of the material things, and the nectar of the devotional things. So the two key takeaways is, whenever possible, hear from the pure devotee, the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam, with the right attitude, with our right capacity and submissiveness, and the faith. And whenever possible, we try to be consistent, and this medicine will work surely, with guarantee. It may work slowly sometimes based on our own capacity. I remember one day I was hearing Bhakti Charu Maharaj's lecture, and one devotee asked him, "Why is the Krishna Prema so hard? And why is Krishna, to get Krishna Prema, why is it so hard?" And Bhakti Charu Maharaj gave a very beautiful answer. Actually, it's very easy. It seems hard because of our own capacity. It's there freely, like Lord Chaitanya said. Is available to everyone and anyone freely. So it is up to our capacity. So we should not. So the two takeaways I was going to say is that whenever we can, we hear from the right source with our right attitude and right consciousness, and whenever we can, we try to be consistent. Then this medicine will sure to work. It is a journey, and so every day is important in this journey. Consistency is the key, and our focus and attention and faith is the key. So those were my reflections. If I said something wrong, or not consistent, not quoting the scriptures, I like to apologize, and I like to also invite devotees to say a few things, their own reflections, or if they have any questions, reflections, corrections, please, I open the door for that right now. If if no if no comments, then I will stay for another minute or so, then we can close the class. Okay, so we can close the class. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Very good.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I could not focusly hear. I was running here and there in temple. So thank
That's
you, Prabhu.
yes.
Yes.